Friends, recently we visited Österreich to test out a whole new equation on utility vehicles, one with almost 600 horsepower and slightly less U. Now let's stay a bit closer to home and try our hand at this equation again, but you know us Americans, let's throw it a bit of a curveball by taking out almost 200 horsepower to see if this equation still stands up. So we're going to talk about the engine now. It's a 3-liter twin-turbo V6. Puts out 362 horsepower, which comes in at 5,500 RPM. Stays flat all the way up to 6,000 RPM. Then there's that torque, you know I like to talk about, and that's 384 pound-feet of torque. But it comes in at a really low 1,400 RPM. I get very excited about that, but I don't want to wake up my co-host here. That obviously is more than the regular GLE by 30 horsepower and probably the same on torque. So how do they get the change? Well, they fool with the boost pressure on the turbos, and then get this, and this is Mauser here, she's very excited about this part. They take, the GLE 63, the monster AMG with, I know, I'm very excited about that too. The GLE 63 Coupe that we drove back in Austria, that's got almost 600 horsepower. Well, they pull the engine control unit off of that 600 horsepower monster to make this V6 purr like a kitten. So 362 horsepower and especially 384 pound-feet of torque, that sounds great! Well, until we get our abacus out, do some math, and realize this thing weighs 5,200 pounds. Even with almost 400 pounds of pulling power, there's a problem. But really there's two things going on here. Number one, we already talked about that torque coming in at 1,400 RPM, which in situations like this, these are stunning roads, and may I digress a little bit, a guy who's from New York that lives in California, we think we got it figured out. But then I go to a place like Eastern Tennessee and see this, and it's like, Santa Maria, Madre de Dios, these people, they got it figured out. Anyway, I digress. So on roads like this, where there's some switchbacks, a lot of nice sweepers here, and plenty of long straights, you're never feeling like you're flat-footed in a car with this kind of weight. And that's really a function of the torque coming in so low and being flat, I would say all the way up to about 5,000 RPM. Then there's the second thing, and that's the transmission. When you say 9-speed transmission, in front of anybody that's driven the current Jeep Cherokee, that's kind of like a 4-letter word, because that transmission in that car, terrible. But here, this is a 9-speed transmission, it is a torque converter, but there's never an instance where you're hunting for gears where the car feels like it just handed off to the wrong gear like it is in the Jeep. And then check this out. There's a manual mode, so I've put this in the manual mode, and you will literally hold the gears. So let's say for the sake of discussion, I want to stay in third and just put my foot into it. It will let me bounce off the red line, which I'm doing right now. See this? I don't try this at home because I don't want you to blow up your engine, but notice I'm about 6,500 RPM. We are at the red line. The transmission is not shifting at all. So no matter what the situation is, whether it's a straight or we get into a little bit of a turn over here, the transmission, it's like it picks the right gear. It's like almost eerie how well it picks the gear, especially when you consider how many gears it has, and again, the weight of this vehicle. It's almost as if the 9-speed transmission is a tool to mitigate the weight. I think that's one of the advantages this has. And then, while we're here, listen to this. Let's do it again. So Mercedes, that's actually a feature. They program it in. They call it controlled misfire. Well, the misfits that you and I are, we call it a burble, and it sounds effing awesome. Let's do it again. Okay, so by design, we have a couple of problems here. Number one, you have a high vehicle. Number two, you've got high ground clearance. And number three, and there's really no nice way to put this, you got almost too much tire. Basically, these things come standard with a 21 inches. This one's fitted with the optional 22s. So really, how does that affect driving dynamics? And we never really talk about this on this show, ride quality. Okay, so out here on the road, there's a couple of moving parts going on in terms of driving dynamics. Now, if you remember in that GLE 63S episode from Germany and Austria, there were two driving dynamic control systems in that car. If you want to learn more about the two of them together, especially the one AMG specific that is only on that car, check out that episode. But here we've got an adjustable suspension and also really all the mapping bits. And then there's another system we'll get to later. Let's start with this. So right now we're in comfort mode, and this is like the basic mode. But don't be fooled into thinking that this is the soft mode. So you got those big wheels out there. So this one we talked about is fitted with the 22s. And you know, the joke with rappers, do you have dubs? And what they don't tell you in those rap songs is when you put big wheels on a car, whether it's from the the OEM or some West Coast Customs or whoever's doing it these days on the Discovery Channel, you trade ride quality. As a matter of fact, it's not just the ride quality, the handling of the vehicle actually degrades. So if you notice with people who do serious track days, if they buy like an old car that came with like 19s or 20s, they generally downsize them to 18s to go out to the track. So what you got here is a bit of a trick. Mercedes has put on bigger wheels and tires to give you a bit of a stiffer ride, which, if I'm reading between the tea leaves here correctly, it kind of masks the movement of that weight by giving you a stiffer ride, even in the comfort setting. Get it? Now let's move up to the sport mode. Now the sport mode, again, this is different mappings, not just the dampers. So we've adjusted the throttle mapping, the steering mapping, and the transmission mapping. So here now we get a little bit more responsiveness on the pedal feel. And notice we go around a corner here, there's a little bit more control over pitch, squat, dive, and roll, especially the roll in the back. Now let's pick up to Sport Plus, and this is the one you and I are going to spend most of our time with. Now notice here, when the screen goes away, Mercedes gives you the option to show you what the suspension is actually doing. Now granted, as the driver, you shouldn't be looking at this, but your passengers can marvel in amazement knowing where the lean is happening in the vehicle, where the the most movement in terms of the weight is being shifted throughout the car. It's a very cool graphic, like to the point where you probably want to sit in the passenger seat and watch it. But again, I digress. So Sport Plus, we have a nice turn here, so let's really put our foot into it. And notice virtually no body roll in the rear, and that's a lot to say for 5,200 pounds on this beautiful Foothills Parkway. And if you've never been here, this is almost nicer than Tail of the Dragon, almost, because there's less traffic, and from what I've seen, there's less Polizei, but I didn't tell you that. And then there's one more setting, and that's the individual setting, which I'm happy to see Mercedes is doing these days. Audi was doing this for years, and even Ford's doing this in the GT350. And basically, it decouples the different mappings, so you can do like Eco on the engine and Sport Plus full fat on the wheels. And frankly, the way I would drive this thing around town normally is with Sport Plus on suspension, steering, and transmission, but then do Eco on the engine, because at some point you do want some fuel economy when you're going around town. So I want to see that in more cars like this. That would be a really nice touch. And then there's one last system, and this is probably one of the most important systems here. And what it does is it controls the side-to-side motion, the pitch of the vehicle. It's called active curve control. It's actually fitted as optional, but this is really the secret sauce in how to get a 5,000-pound vehicle to go around turns. Like, for example, we got a nice stretch with a bit of a sweeper here, but notice when I put my foot into it, there isn't really a lot of lean to the side. Yeah, this system here controls the body roll in the back, but the side-to-side is the active curve control. So again, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly here, there are a couple moving parts that go into the driving dynamics, or really fooling physics with this weight of a vehicle doing what we've been doing over the past couple of days. It's the size of those wheels, it's this active control system here to adjust all the mapping bits, and then it's the control over the side-to-side motion of the vehicle. And then, I gotta do it again, it's got the blip. So I know Mercedes calls this thing a coupe, but call me old-fashioned, a coupe is two doors, so this thing still has some utility to it, right? So obviously, let's sit in the back seat here and see if we can actually fit. The seat is in the position where I would drive it, so there's some knee room there. And I am 6 foot tall, and this car is fitted with a sunroof, so believe it or not, there is some utility back here. But there's still one more important test that we need to get to. Okay, so let's be honest here. no one's gonna put 2x4s from Home Depot in this thing. So I found the, I guess, cargo that you would really put in a vehicle like this. Meet Britain. Come on, sweetie. Ready? Let's go up here. Let's have some fun. I know we're gonna go up. You wanna get in there? I know, it's fun. It's you? Wow. You've been eating a lot, haven't you? That's all 82 pounds of dog in the back of your utility vehicle, and she doesn't want to stay there. So I guess, as nice as this car is, not for dogs, but at least we know that she fits. So I decided to go find some traffic in eastern Tennessee here to experience what this whole thing is like in practice, and this is the most traffic I could find. Although we got a Maserati here in traffic, and I noticed something. The interior, it's a little strange to me. Like, for example, I think Mercedes missed an opportunity here. Say goodbye to the Maserati. I think Mercedes missed an opportunity here by not putting a unique dashboard in this thing. This is carried over from the GLE, what used to be the ML. Like, I would have loved to have seen like a 928-esque dashboard in here. Remember that? How it was like far out there and you had the binnacle here. I think that would have done a lot to open up this cabin. And it's not just the design that would really open this up. The color, it's just, the black is horrible. It encloses the cabin, especially when you have a smaller greenhouse here. But then there's this other thing that's not so much a trick, but something you only notice in practice. Notice where I'm sitting. I can't put the seat down very far here. And it's not that I don't have headroom. I would just like to feel like more open and airy here, especially I'm driving past a big Cadillac Escalade. And it's kind of a weird feeling. Not that it's small, I just think they missed an opportunity to make this thing more special than the GLE, the run-of-the-mill GLE. So in summary, what do we got? Well, when we peel back the almost 600 horsepower of that GLE 63S we drove over in Oostenrijk, we noticed a couple of trade-offs here. Number one, the weight, and number two, the ride quality. And really, you and I are car guys, so we don't worry about stuff like this. Well, we do worry about weight. But the people who buy utility vehicles, they do worry about stuff like this. Actually, they don't worry about weight, they do worry about ride quality. But really, this comes down to a question. What car, a really sporty car or sports car over the past 20 or 30 years doesn't present the question or trade-off of weight and ride quality? So with that, I want to leave you guys with a question. The base price of this vehicle here is actually almost half the cost, or half the base price, of that GLE 63S we drove over in Europe. So it opens this car up to a lot more people that were looking for utility vehicles. So my question to you guys is this. Would you choose this funky version or derivation of a utility vehicle, a regular utility vehicle, or my favorite, a lowly station wagon, estate, or what my father used to call pig fair cars? And don't just let me know which one you would choose, let me know why you would choose it, whether you have kids or pets, and what region of the world you live in. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And until next time, Mauser and I are going to go check out more of what Eastern Tennessee has to offer, because this is one hell of a stunning place.